I'm going to throw it out there, a little bit of a holiday edition of NFL Power Rankings presented by Energizer. Mike Ham, Eric Edholm with us. And of course, if you want a complete list of all 32 teams with analysis, all you have to do is scan that QR code. But I don't know, under the tree here, we get a little bit of chaos at the top. Eric, we got some changes going on.
Yeah, ended up back where we started at the beginning of the year. Kansas City kind of reshuffling their way to the top. That's what happens with one loss.
It is. All right, let's go through it. Teams 1 through 8 right now. You made reference to it. KC sitting in the 1 spot. The Buffalo Bills at number 2 still haven't earned just yet the AFC's number 1 seed, which if they could, and they do, it'll be the first time since '93. The Lions setting a franchise record with their 13th win. At number 4, it's the Eagles. Tough loss for them. We'll discuss that squad in just a minute. The Vikings have now won 8 straight games. They're in the 5th spot. The Packers at 6. The Ravens still alive in the AFC North, the 7th team, and the Commanders sitting at number 8. It's time for Team of the Week. It's presented by Truist. All right, let's circle back on this number 1 squad, and that is the Kansas City Chiefs. We keep talking about these one-possession games. They keep on winning. Eric, is this still a thing?
It is still a thing. They've got it down to a science at this point. I mean, I think at some point, we realized the suspicions should fade away. And I think the trust in this team, everything they've built up over the last 5 years, certainly, but even this season, too, the ability to close out games, they know how to do it. First drive, though, for me, set a big statement. We all came in with questions about Patrick Mahomes' ankle. I felt like those were answered. He had a big scramble there on 3rd and 13. They convert the 4th, and then all of a sudden, Patrick Mahomes is running 15 yards into the end zone. I mean, You almost could hear Arrowhead kind of collectively holding their breath when that started, but by the end of the drive, I think a lot of people, myself included, felt like Mahomes is in decent shape. This team keeps winning. The defense takes care of business. They've got some people back from injury. I think the Chiefs are in pretty good shape. We can respect them now again.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I know we were talking about that ankle injury. Pretty quickly into the game, you just sit there and go, no, he's 15. He's the magician. He's A-OK. Yep. Meanwhile, the Detroit Lions sitting at the number 2 spot, or excuse me, the Lions sitting at the number 3 spot. I say the Bills are at number 2. When you look at this Detroit squad, is there a team that's mentally tougher than them in the league?
Yeah, I obviously coming off their first loss in 3 months and dealing with the spate of injuries on both sides of the ball, not just that defense, David Montgomery as well. Look, you're still going on the road. You're still facing a divisional opponent. The Bears gave them a ton of trouble on Thanksgiving. They get off to a fast start, answer a bunch of questions right away. Yeah, look, Gibbs was great in kind of a lead role. That wasn't a big shock, but the trick play, how about the latest sorcery from Ben Johnson, that fake stumble, fake fumble, whatever you want to call it. Gibbs played his part, Jared Goff did his thing, and Sam Laporta caught it. I almost wonder if Ben Johnson wasn't maybe showing off a little for the Bears. They've got a head coaching search in the offseason. That's a story for down the road. But for the Lions and their quest for a Super Bowl, this was a great way to get back on track. Still have 2 tough games, San Francisco, Minnesota, and they've got to beat the Vikings to ensure they win the division, assuming both teams win next week. But there's still a lot to like about this team, Mike. The mental toughness being, I think, close to the top of the list, that fearless factor they bring into most games.
I think it was Ian Rappaport, our colleague at NFL Network, who reported that Ben Johnson was intrigued by the opportunity of the Chicago Bears. Just throwing that out there. Something tells me I kind of would have thought they would have pocketed that play for the postseason because it would have been crazy in a playoff game to see something like that. But nonetheless, an impressive play call. Number 4, it's the Eagles. We just give them a pass. I mean, Jalen wasn't out there for most of that game.
You could do that, but you could also say, hey, look, Hurts is in concussion protocol. You've got Kenny Pickett, his backup, who, was up and down in his place, having x-rays on his ribs. Are we looking at Tanner McKee playing football down the stretch in pivotal moments for the Eagles? I don't know that we're at that point yet, but there are some concerns. It puts a lot more of the onus on Saquon Barkley. He's got to keep being superhero every week, assuming there's some concern at the quarterback spot. And then defensively allowing 5 touchdown drives and, some coverage busts there, some late breakdowns. Kind of feels like they may have let the chance to get the number 1 seed slip away, but it's still there. They still have that opportunity, and I'm not ready to bury this team, but they did drop out of the top spot. We had just graduated them to the top of the heap, and a little bit of humble pie on, before Christmas here.
It's wild. What's an NFL season? What's another edition of Power Rankings with not a little chaos at the top there? I'm sort of shocked, to be honest with you, that it did play out the way that it did. And speaking of that Eagles squad, they lose to a Commanders team where Jaden Daniels looks like, maybe he might have cemented himself as the offensive rookie of the year. I know it's been an up and down campaign for Washington. How much are you buying this team?
I think I'm buying stock again. I was ready to kind of unload a little bit, or sort of softly get rid of what I bought up all in the preseason. I was high on this team early in the year, but they found their way again, and I think Daniels is obviously a huge part of it. I mean, to give them a spark with two receivers who hadn't really done much all season, at least as far as touchdown production. Jamison Crowder catches the first one, also the game winner. Olamide Zaccheaus. They don't win without those two touchdowns in the fourth quarter from him. So some big plays from unexpected sources. But Daniels now, even as a rookie, he is the expected source. He is expected to carry this offense. And to him, that's just okay. I think everybody has kind of fallen in line. They've grabbed onto his cape, and I want to see how far it takes him, right? Is he going to go on a Jordan Love-like run in the playoffs this year or something? I could see it, absolutely. They're building so much confidence in Washington, even after some stumbles earlier this year.
Yeah, really looking forward to the matchup against Atlanta at Sunday Night Football. A lot on the line for both of these teams and a great rookie quarterback matchup. We'll talk about the Falcons in just a moment. The Vikings. Can't we just say, hey, why not us? I mean, if you're a Minnesota fan, this is a complete balanced team.
I went on a radio show the other day and somebody said, where did you move the Vikings up to? And I said, I got them stuck at 5. I can't find a spot for them. Maybe they're better than the Eagles. Maybe they're better than some of those other teams in the top 4, but they are terrific. And I do believe they sort of have found a way into that elite tier of the NFL right now. Defense, offense. How about Sam Darnold throwing that ball after taking a massive hit the play before, threading it into Justin Jefferson? Those are plays that, yes, we've always known Sam Darnold is capable of, but now he's making them on the regular. This team, like we said with Washington, is just brimming with confidence, but they've been doing it now over the course of a few months and still get their chance to get a little payback against or fight off a Packers team that's looking for payback, I should say. And again, I feel like this is a different model than we saw 2 years ago when they had an equally impressive record, 13-4, but the negative point differential. This season feels different to me. I don't have those same doubts. I think they're really on a roll right now.
Yeah, I'm sitting there going, you know what? Relatively healthy heading into the postseason, playing some really great football. Darnold's confidence is probably as high as it was in his last campaign in Southern California playing for SC. I mean, this is a team that should make some noise in the postseason. Now, they get an opportunity to sort of prove it here against a Green Bay squad. That matchup gets flexed to that 4:25 Eastern time window. The Packers, they pitch a shutout. Speaking of balanced teams, I got to be honest with you, Eric, they're kind of like right there with them. Defensively, they look great against the Saints, and I know a lot of issues offensively that they have, but the reality is there's a lot of talented pieces for LaFleur.
Yeah, the questions about the Packers, at least for me, are not about what they can do against middling teams like the Saints. Obviously, they're very beat up, and they took care of business Monday night, no doubt, got off to the top, fast start, put it in cruise control after that. It's what the Packers rather can do against the elite teams in the NFL. We've seen them come up just short against the Lions, just short against the Vikings, other teams in that same echelon. And this next matchup, the rematch against Minnesota, this is their opportunity not only to change the calculus in the NFC and the NFC North for that matter, but also to send a statement, hey, we can win these types of games. I love when Josh Jacobs sets the tone early. I love that they have 5 or 6 playmakers they trust. They just got Luke Musgrave back off the IR. They're getting healthy too, and that defense has responded after some tough outings this year, including the one at Detroit.
We had the Monday Night Football postgame show on NFL Network when it was done, and you hear LaFleur, you hear Jordan Love. These guys are just being asked about this next matchup. That wasn't one. They get an opportunity to redeem themselves. It was a close defeat for them. Career highs in terms of yardage and passing touchdowns for Jordan Love, but he threw 3 interceptions in that game. It was his return after missing 2 with the MCL. So this game also feels a little bit different than the one that we witnessed back in week number 4. All right, it is now time to get to Future Champions. It is presented by FanDuel. Take a closer look at the odds in the AFC North. Yeah, and then there were 2 to go and win this division. The Baltimore Ravens, according to FanDuel, the favorite right now, followed by the Steelers. All right, let's focus in on the 7th-ranked team, and that is the Ravens. They get Houston on Christmas Day. Lamar just continues to ball out. I think there's a lot of different ways that we go with this team. We can have the MVP conversation, but to me, maybe the best storyline is a resurgence on the defensive side by Zach Orr's unit.
You're right. Lamar, Henry, Rashad Bateman, they're all crucial pieces of that offense. But I've said, this team last year that was even better on the defensive side, they didn't win with it. So they had to get better. We've seen the strides, not just in this last game against Pittsburgh with the big plays, the fumble and the interception, the pick six, but also over recent weeks too. So there's a body of work there, I feel like, Mike, that we can kind of start to embrace. I don't think they're going to be as dominant. The pass rush isn't quite as good. The coverage has been a little bit disappointing over the course of the season, but still a tough team. And it just feels like they're on a crash course with the Chiefs at some point. They met in week 1 to kick off the season. We're going to see these teams meet again. I'm calling my shot right now.
There's something about a potential rematch that's got me intrigued here. Baltimore, they were the team that was dominant all season long. Now, all of a sudden, I think they go from the hunted to now the hunters this season with 5 losses. I think this is a different vibe heading into the postseason, which might be a good thing for Harbaugh's squad.
Yeah.
I made reference to it. Christmas Day, yes, we will see this Baltimore Ravens squad. We got 2 games on Netflix. December 25th, let's roll. You got the gifts, you got some football. At 1 Eastern, it's Kansas City taking on Pittsburgh, and then it's, that Ravens-Texans matchup at 4:30 Eastern time. Now, we talked a little bit about the Baltimore Ravens. I think the biggest question is, where does that leave Pittsburgh? The answer to that is coming up next on Power Rankings. Back here on Power Rankings. Teams 9 through 16. Oh, the Steelers still controlling their own destiny in the AFC North after that loss to the Ravens, which we just talked about. At number 10, it's the Chargers, an impressive win for Justin Herbert and company against the Broncos, who are at 11. At 12, it's the Rams, cross country in the cold in New Jersey. Doesn't matter for that SoCal team. 13, the Texans. Tank Dell's injury could loom large. We got the Buccaneers. That 4-game winning streak, it is snapped. The Falcons at 15. We'll talk about them in just a moment. And the Bengals, they're still alive. But it is time for Power Moves, presented by Energizer. All right, let's circle back on that 10th ranked team in the Chargers. I think they're for a good stretch of this season, Eric. We felt like, hey, this is a team that's really dangerous because of their defense, because of Justin Herbert. It feels like at times, especially late in the season with some of these injuries, he's a one-man band on offense.
Absolutely. We've seen Ladd McConkey miss time. We've obviously seen some of the receivers struggle with drops, too. So there's been a lot working against him. His favorite tight end, at least early in the season, Will Dissly out, too. But Herbert keeps coming back, fighting through that left ankle injury. We saw him even make a couple of big scrambles, but really it was finding some of these receivers. Joshua Palmer, who had a terrific one-handed catch in the back of the end zone for the 2-pointer, and then also getting some unexpected sources from guys like Haskins, too. And, Herbert really has had a terrific season. And maybe we put too much stock in that second half against the Bucs. They got blown out. It happened a couple times this year. They've had a few really bad halves. Arizona, Tampa Bay, Cincinnati, etc. But when they're at their best, they have a path to kind of come back, and Herbert's got the ball in his hands. Good things usually happen, so I'm still pretty encouraged about their chances to maybe pull a first-round upset in the playoffs if they get there.
Yeah, once again, you play defense the way that they do, it's definitely going to give you an opportunity once the postseason rolls around. We do get to see them on a Saturday, and yes, we have an exclusive triple header on NFL Network. The Chargers will be matching up against the New England Patriots. Coverage of that game, by the way, 1 Eastern time. Do not want to miss it. Broncos and Bengals at 4, and then it's the Cardinals and Rams at 8 Eastern. Once again, this Saturday, only on NFL Network and streaming on NFL Plus. Subscription required for NFL Plus. I do love the story around this Atlanta Falcons team who sit at number 15 for you. Michael Penix, we weren't sure how they were going to handle Kirk Cousins. The rookie comes in there, signs of life for this team's offense. I think the arrow might be pointing up for this team heading into the playoffs, potentially.
Yeah, you talked about kind of the Eagles mentality, the Ravens mentality being the hunted here, and I think it applies to the Falcons too. They've put themselves in this position, obviously, and maybe they waited too long to make a quarterback switch, but they got it done. Penix got, if we're using baseball terms here, like a starting pitcher, great run support. His receivers made plays. Bijan Robinson was a huge part of the run game. That opened up play action. And oh, by the way, 2 defensive touchdowns. That's pretty good support right there. So every, perfect situation, everything you could ask for a rookie quarterback making his first start, an experienced guy in college, but still got to be some butterflies. And I thought he handled himself really well, especially after starting the game 2 for 6. He really found a rhythm there and took apart a good Giants defense. You can say what you want about them. They're not a good football team, but the defense has played well at times this year.
Yeah, 34 unanswered points for the Falcons. Once again, they will match up. I know I made reference to it earlier against Washington on Sunday Night Football. At 16, Cincinnati. They are maybe the most interesting team on power rankings. Every single week, I feel like I'm on the bus, then they lose, then I'm off the bus. I keep going back and forth. For what it's worth, Next Gen Stats put their chances of making the postseason at 7%. So, Eric, I'm going to say it. There's still a chance.
You're saying there's a chance, right? Yes, they're like the undead team right now. Nobody can actually kill them off. We'll see if Denver can take care of business this week. But to go on the road and get 2 road wins and then come back home against Cleveland and have their probably their best defensive showing of the season. Granted, it came against a third-string quarterback, but still, that's the kind of confidence I think you need from a unit that has been called out. And you still got Joe Burrow, you still have Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and the offense has had plenty to do these last several games. They've been in this mode where they feel like they have to beat people via shootout, and that really wasn't the case Sunday. They got off to a hot start, kind of put the game in control and took care of business from there. So anything could happen down the stretch, right? They've got Denver, they've got Pittsburgh. I give them a decent shot, a competitive shot to win either game. And who knows? It would be a crazy story in a year where there haven't been a lot of playoff mystery teams sort of coming out of nowhere so far.
Yeah, not to give away where you have the Colts, because we'll do that coming up in just a minute here. They sit at number 22. It's amazing to me just in terms of where the rankings are. I think we're probably on the same page. Colts probably are going to be the playoff team, and yet I think both of us like Cincinnati and their chances if they were able to make it to make some noise.
Yeah, the more dangerous of the two teams, look, even with Jonathan Taylor or somebody like that, I mean, I think the quarterback position and some defensive improvement, those receivers, that's what makes them so scary to a lot of people. They got nothing to lose at this point, too.
Yeah, winners of 3 straight games. And once again, I think there's a lot of fans around the NFL who might not have a team that it's going to be in the playoffs. I'm a Giants fan. I kind of just want to see Joe Burrow ball out and see what happens when the playoffs roll around. But one division we've been trying to figure out, NFC West, Seattle, we've been going back and forth. We've started to buy their stock, and right now it feels like it's not worth a whole lot. Eric will tell us where they sit in the power rankings coming up next. Back here on Power Rankings, Mike Hammond, Eric at home with you. Teams 17 through 24. The Seahawks, I really don't know what to make of this squad. Eric, you're going to be given that task to explain it to me in just a moment here. The Dolphins, they rolled the Niners. They're at 18. At 19, the Cardinals. Oh boy, there was a time where I thought they were the team to beat in the NFC West. That is not the case. Panthers handled them in overtime. The Cowboys, all of a sudden, they're winning some football games at 20. The Niners, not the season that I had expected for them. The Colts at 22. The Saints, they got shut out. Remember those first few weeks of the season? We were talking about that offense just rolling. They were scoring like 40 plus every single week. No Derek Carr, that's going to be a problem. And the Bears at 24 continue to spiral out of control. All right, Seattle. Lay it on me, man. Like, what is this football team?
Yeah, it's really hard to sort of categorize a team that opens the season with 3 straight wins, then follows it up with 5 out of 6 games that are losses, and then 3 more wins, and then 2 losses in a row. It has been a roller coaster, at least as far as the wins and losses go in Mike Macdonald's first season. They've dealt with a lot of stuff. Kenneth Walker hurt again this season. That really has hindered the run game. It's put a lot on Geno Smith's shoulders, Mike. And look, they have those receivers, but the protection hasn't always been there. Geno's throwing some red zone picks. He's kind of inching closer to his rookie year INT total. Yeah. He's also completing 70% of his passes and on pace for a career high in passing yards. So there's been some good. There's been a reason why they're still in the race, and they're going to have to beat Chicago. The wild card is out, and then hope for Arizona to beat the Rams. That would set up a take it all or nothing kind of game in Week 18 for the division. But again, they're really swimming upstream at this point. Defensively hasn't been the season they hoped, especially with McDonald, but they got a chance. I don't know what I expected, Mike, coming into the year. I think something around this. I don't think this is terribly out of character for them, at least as far as what I thought they were going to be coming into the year.
So in the race with the potential to go and win the division you thought was fair, and I guess in hindsight that is, but I don't know. Look, the reality is I don't think there's any team that's better than the Rams right now in the division. They should be the team that goes to the postseason.
I think so, right? I mean, they, from the 1-4 start, they've obviously turned things completely around. And, you could say the same about Seattle after their tough stretch right after that. But still, whatever team's been in the first place, the pole position in the NFC West the last month or so hasn't had the best of luck. Arizona, Seattle, and now LA's there. Can they hang on? Can they play some of their best football, which they have, and continue their hot streak?
Yeah, 1-4 to start the season since the bye, 8-2, and I made this point yesterday on the postgame show on Monday Night Football. The Rams, to me, if they were healthy at the start of the season, I think it's a different narrative around this team. Remember, that offensive line was decimated, which is the reason why they started 1-4 on the year. Speaking of teams that I can't figure out, the Cowboys. Where are these wins coming from? I mean, this was tough sledding for a good stretch of this season. I think we were questioning about Mike McCarthy, if he's going to be the coach. Like, there's signs of life right now inside that locker room.
Whatever McCarthy is telling his players in meetings, in practices, prior to games, at halftime, it's working, right? I mean, he's got this team back on track, starting quarterback out, injuries all over the place, losing pieces on defense as well. And boy, they found a spirit that I didn't know they would have. This was a team that was sort of caught in a malaise for a while, but you saw them finish off that dramatic game Monday night against a good Bucs team, a desperate Bucs team that was also sort of controlling its fate to a degree. So does this mean McCarthy's back? You're seeing Cooper Rush perform at an effective level. I mean, he looked pretty darn good the last month or so. And, Mike McCarthy's expertise is on the offensive side of the ball. CeeDee Lamb is engaged. You've got Rico Dowdle going late in the season, even with a bad game Monday. I mean, all the signs are in a positive direction. I think that bodes well for McCarthy. I don't know if it means he's going to have his job, but good for them for staying in the race when everybody had kind of thrown some dirt on him. And, they just got eliminated, but still competitive football throughout. You got to tip your hat to that.
Yeah, I think if he doesn't have a job in Dallas, and I'm not saying that he won't, if he doesn't, I think there's a lot of teams that are going to look at the second half of the season and go, you know what, we'll take him on our squad. Yeah. All right, let's get to the rest of the teams, 25 through 32. The Panthers, I cannot believe we're talking about them at 25. Let's roll. In front of the Jets, no less, at 26. How do you think about some preseason hype? The Browns at 27, hanging tough, but another loss for them. The Patriots at 28. At 29, it's the Raiders. I had so many text messages from friends and family that are Giants fans that were rooting so hard for the Raiders to pull off a win, and they got it done. The Jags at 30, the Titans at 31, and yes, the Giants, who should maybe possibly get the number 1 overall pick. We'll see how it plays out the rest of the season and if they pick up a win to make things interesting, but I think there's a fan base that would love for them to get the number 1 selection in this year's coming draft. But the Panthers at 25. Be honest, I mean, if I would have told you that at this point, week heading into week 17, that this team would be 25th, you would have said, nah, you're lying.
Yeah, I don't know that I would have expected them to land there, especially not after the first 2 weeks of the season. Things were looking so bad. Bryce Young was benched. His backup goes and wins their first game for him. But you got to give Young a ton of credit for taking the demotion, figuring out what he needed to work on, putting it to work behind the scenes. And then when he got his second opportunity after Dalton got hurt, really made the most of it. And now people are not talking about what a giant draft bust he is. He is now all of a sudden back in that same position he was in the offseason as the leader of this team. There's some young pieces to get excited about. The offensive line, Leggett, and also Chuba Hubbard. Boy, he had that overtime fumble a couple weeks ago, ended up being the overtime hero on Sunday. So the arrow's trending back up for this team. They got a lot of work to do in the offseason, but I like the direction they're heading in right now, Mike.
There's that old adage in the college football world, right? When a new coach takes over, you probably lose big in year number 1. You lose a little smaller in year number 2. You start winning small in year 3, and then you start winning big in year 4. That's obviously the path here. I think we're starting to see that within one season. Some close losses down the stretch for Carolina here, but then they go and pick up a win. So maybe, as to your point, arrow is pointing up for Bryce Young and the Carolina Panthers. Who would have thunk it after making that quarterback change? Eric, you're the best, man. Merry Christmas to you and your family. Merry Christmas to everyone that's out there. Enjoy the Christmas Day games. Enjoy the Saturday and Sunday games, and we'll see you next week for another edition of Power Rankings.